Well, we are now on page 14 of our working file, Moving Objects. The subject of moving objects is obviously basic and easy. It's more a case of how do we move objects that, one, is convenient, and secondly, when they were in a difficult place, and that's why I have got somewhat of an eclectic group of objects sitting here, as you can see. Well, of course, I can simply select that object, move that object wherever I want. Control Z. And Control Z on my keyboard undoes that, moves that back. I can click that and move that one. However, when I click in the middle layer, as you can see, nothing happens. Now, do you remember why? Remember earlier we talked about objects that don't have a fill, and we set our mouse to that not all objects are treated as either field. Okay, remember that setting earlier on? Well, what I want to quickly show you here is the methods of moving. Well, of course, we have learned how to select. So if I were to select that group of objects without thinking about it, click in the middle and go to Move. As you can see, I've deselected, and they can be quite a nuisance, particularly if you've picked 50 objects in a bunch of objects. So here is the thing. If you select the group of objects like that and you're not sure, because remember, anything that does have a fill, in our case, we can select and move, but if you are not sure, click on the little X in the middle, and you're guaranteed to be out of Move All the Objects. If I would have clicked alongside the X, well, of course, I don't sit up on deselected because I have clicked through that one object there. One last thing, if I've selected a group of objects, I can always click on an outline of any of the objects and I can move that bunch of objects pretty easily. Well, I'm going to just delete those and pop them out of the way, and I'm going to put this one here and put that one in the middle. Now, even as I'm moving, can you see all of the shapes that are there? When I let go of my mouse, we can only see the top one. In fact, there is a whole bunch sitting underneath, and that's what's there. This is my point. Remember we learned earlier how to dig through? So if I select the top one, for example, and I put my finger on the Alt key, click, and I can select one of the objects underneath, how do I move that object? If I click on any one of the sizing handles, I want to move it or just simply resize it, and that's not what we want to do. We want to move it. If I clicked while I select it through, like at the top object, and not the one I want. So, in the same way we had learned, I need to click on that little X to move my object, and I have got a few objects. Finger on Alt, click that little X in the middle. That makes life a lot easier. Look, another advantage of moving objects with that little X is, if I click Run in the center of the X, I have an approximate center of that object so that I can line them up. It is not accurate, but it is a slope way of lining up as well. So, click the little X in the middle of your selection, select all of these, click the X in the middle of the selection. Well, finally, I quickly want to talk about moving objects using Nudge Marker, Nudge, and using Constrained. Well, we are talking about moving an object using the arrows on the keyboard and not the mouse. Okay, now we can make a setting on the property by which we call the nudge distance as to how this will work for us. Now you only see the nudge distance when nothing is selected, so if I select those objects, you can see that property is relative to what I have selected come up. So deselect to just get your standard property bar settings. Right now I have a value of 1. So if I select an object and I use my keyboard, so 1, as you can hear, I am typing a while on my keyboard over to the left like that. Now I not only have quite a small nudge setting because I use it for doing small things. However, you can adjust this. So for example, I just said type 10, right? Now I will select my object. Now one tap, and as you can see, it's jumping by a factor of 10 mm in my case. The interesting thing is that there are a couple of multiples if you like. If one is my Shift key, first of all, without the Shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can see I have moved that. Now I am back to where I was. Finger on Shift. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, Shift is multiplying that factor by 2, so it's doubling the distance from 10 to 20 back on, and that can be quite handy. We also have the reverse control to marker nudge, which will be half. We divided by 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's just without finger on control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. As you can see, you can adjust the settings to suit how you want them to work. Just simply double-click on your rulers. So double-click, and that will bring up your options. And you'll notice that we are in the Rulers section, and if we look on the nudge, you can make adjustments here. Well, the value that is up there is obviously here, and if you change it there, it will change here, and vice versa. However, Super Nudge, which is why I've written here, is 2 times. You can change that into whatever you want. You can make a factor of 10, so every time it jumps, in my case, it would be 10 times 10, which would be 100. The marker nudges the same. Rather than dividing by 2, you could divide by 10 or 5 or whatever is a convenient figure for you. So just keep that in mind. It's very handy. The last thing I want to show you is constrained. I use this the most. Look, every 4th or 5th click of my mouse. I am almost using this. What it does, if I put my finger on that object, then I move around. I can freely move it wherever I want, but watch what happens. A while ago as I put my finger on control, see that? Suddenly it snaps to us to constrain to a perfect horizontal plane to where it was. So that means if I pop that over there, I will keep my finger on control, pop that over there, finger on control. See how I can perfectly move things like that? Select that back like that, finger back on control, and on constraining either horizontally or vertically. It really is very, very powerful, and I'll show you more of that as we go on in time. It's time to show you those things quickly. Have a play with that and move on to the next lesson.